Humans have only existed for a fleeting moment in the history of Earth. Even if we include our relatives within the Homo genus, that number barely reaches 3 million years, a mere blink of an eye compared to billions of years of evolution. And yet, in those few short millions of years, humanity has witnessed countless wonders, ice ages, mass extinctions, and creatures so terrifying that, frankly, I'm glad they no longer exist. Part of that comes from the chaotic environments our ancestors once inhabited. Sometimes it was due to extreme climates, but more often it was because of the creatures that shared those same lands. Imagine this. Early humans once lived alongside saber-toothed cats, bears the size of trucks, and elephants even larger than T-Rex. A prehistoric forest back then was less a peaceful wilderness and more a biological war zone. It's no surprise then that sometimes we were the prey. Fossil evidence shows that some of our ancestors were hunted, torn apart, and dragged away by the apex predators of their time. And while every predator is frightening in its own right, there were some that stood above the rest, larger, stronger, and truly terrifying in the most literal sense. Which raises the question, what was the largest predator humans ever lived alongside? More specifically, what is the largest animal known to have actively hunted humans? We can rule out killer whales or sperm whales. They dwell in deep ocean waters, far from where humans lived, and they don't view us as natural prey. But once you exclude those oceanic giants, the answer becomes chillingly clear. The creature in question still exists today, the crocodile. These reptiles are the largest living members of their class. Living machines found almost everywhere the climate is warm enough to sustain them. And unfortunately, they are also the most dangerous animals to humans, if we exclude indirect killers like disease, venom, or toxins. In other words, crocodiles are among the few true natural predators of mankind. It's not surprising then that some have reached sizes that defy imagination. The most iconic of all is the saltwater crocodile, the undisputed king of the modern crocodile family. A full-grown adult can weigh over a ton, heavier than a polar bear, the largest terrestrial carnivore alive today. You might think that's the end of the story, but it isn't, because just like the term human, the word crocodile is far more complex than it seems. When I say crocodile is the answer to the question of the largest predator ever known to hunt humans, I'm not referring to a single species, but to the Crocodylus genus, the true crocodiles still alive today. This genus now has only 2 surviving branches, but like our Homo lineage, it boasts a long and resilient evolutionary history, stretching back more than 25 million years. Over that vast span of time, Crocodylus produced some of the greatest monsters in natural history, creatures so massive that all others bowed before them. And ironically, the largest of them all, the biggest true crocodile ever known, lived alongside early humans. Its name was Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni. This giant predator once brought primal nightmares to our ancestors, then vanished, forgotten for millions of years. It wasn't until a team of archaeologists in Kenya unearthed several gigantic skulls along the ancient shores of Lake Turkana, once part of a vast system of deep lakes and rivers, that its identity was revealed. The skulls clearly belonged to a crocodile, but one so enormous it dwarfed every living species today. It couldn't possibly be a Nile crocodile or a saltwater crocodile. The proportions pointed to a prehistoric monster that had long since vanished. If you think, oh, just a few extra feet, think again. Estimates suggest the largest individuals reached up to 7.6 meters, 25 feet in length, while the record-holding saltwater crocodile barely reached 6.4 meters, 21 feet. And since skull-based size estimates are often conservative, researchers believe it could have grown even larger, possibly exceeding 8.2 meters, 27 feet. That alone would make it terrifying, but C. thorbjarnarsoni wasn't just long. It was described as a living armored tank. Its body was immensely muscular, covered in reinforced osteoderms, with a skull and spine built to withstand massive force. Its estimated weight may have exceeded 2.5 tons, heavier than several large hippos combined. With that mass and build, it feared nothing, not even the strongest hominins. Its bite, capable of pulverizing bone, could cause catastrophic injuries in a single snap. Many scientists believe C. thorbjarnarsoni was an ecological overlord, the absolute apex of its environment, with no natural rivals. When early hominins, such as Homo habilis, Paranthropus, or Homo rudolfensis, roamed the banks of ancient lakes and rivers, they were stepping directly into C. thorbjarnarsoni's killing grounds. These regions were deep, lush waterways, perfect hiding spots for a massive ambush predator. It used its powerful tail to lunge explosively from the water, seizing prey before it even realized what had happened. With its natural armor and perfect camouflage, it was practically invisible until it was too late. Interestingly, while there is clear evidence of crocodile attacks on hominins elsewhere, such as bite marks at Olduvai Gorge attributed to Crocodylus anthropophagus, no hominin bones from the Turkana Basin show such marks from C. thorbjarnarsoni. One hypothesis is that ancient humans were highly cautious around the water, or that the crocodiles consumed their victims entirely, leaving no trace behind. If you're thinking, we're lucky to be living after that era, you're absolutely right. Imagine walking down to a river to wash your hands, and a prehistoric monster waiting just beneath the surface. Today's crocodiles are still terrifying, but at least they're not as big as the Godzilla of the Pleistocene. 8 to 9 massive skulls of C. thorbjarnarsoni have been discovered in the Turkana Basin of Kenya, within the Kubifora, Nachukui, and Kanapoi formations. The type specimen, nearly complete, KNN-ER 1683, was found in layers dated to around 2 million years ago. The fossil remains of Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni span a broad time range, from roughly 5 million to 1.8 million years ago, covering both the Pliocene and early Pleistocene epochs. For comparison, the largest known skull measures about 85 centimeters from snout to skull tip, larger than the biggest known saltwater crocodile skull, around 76 centimeters. Based on regression analyses derived from other Crocodylus species, this corresponds to a total body length of about 6.2–6.5 meters. However, because such regressions tend to underestimate maximum size, researchers believe the actual length could have reached 7.6 meters. Taxonomically, C. thorbjarnarsoni had a broad snout, a high cranial vault, and soft horn-like projections on the squamosal bones, similar to the horned crocodile C. anthropophagus, though less pronounced. Phylogenetic analyses suggest the Crocodylus genus first appeared in Africa around 7 million years ago, diversifying throughout the Neogene period. Although no hominin fossils have yet been found with confirmed bite marks from C. thorbjarnarsoni, the possibility that it preyed upon early humans cannot be dismissed. It might have swallowed its victims whole, leaving no disarticulated remains, or the bodies were digested completely, erasing any visible trace. Paleontologists Brochu and Storrs propose that encounters between ancient humans and these man-eating crocodiles must have been a constant source of fear at water's edge, that drinking water itself was a life-or-death test. It's also important to remember, the Homo genus was not the only hominin group living in this region. There were also Paranthropus, Kenyanthropus, Australopithecus, and Homo habilis, rudolfensis, all potential prey. Today, the most dangerous crocodile to humans is the saltwater crocodile, Crocodylus porosus, which can reach about 6.4 meters, 21 ft in length. But C. thorbjarnarsoni far exceeded that, both in size and in build. Its teeth were designed with a strong interlocking pattern for shearing bone, and its bite force was likely far greater than that of any living crocodile, possibly one of the strongest of its era. With such power and proportions, it had virtually no natural enemies. Therefore, in terms of regular predation on humans, C. thorbjarnarsoni might well be the top contender. Yet uncertainties remain. There's still no direct fossil evidence of hominin bite marks from the Turkana region. The theories, total digestion or extreme caution among early humans, are plausible, but unconfirmed. Moreover, the total number of specimens remains small, only about 9 skulls described so far. The true maximum size could therefore have exceeded current estimates, so we can imagine that every time our ancestors approached the water, to drink, to wash, or to fish, they risked facing one of the greatest killers in natural history, a colossal crocodile that rivaled monsters in size. Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni was not just a gigantic predator. It may have been the largest creature ever to look upon a member of Homo. You might think, I'm lucky I wasn't born back then, and you'd be right. But that's the beauty of paleontology. It lets us imagine and ask, what if? If you had walked to the lakeshore 2 million years ago, would you have made it back? Modern paleontologists are fairly certain our ancestors were attacked by these beasts. Not possibly, certainly. The only remaining mystery is, where are the bones? And the answer, as usual, isn't comforting. One dark hypothesis suggests there simply wasn't anything left. When you're roughly shoulder-high to a crocodile and weigh a ton less than it does, the only trace after an attack might have been a few ripples on the water's surface. To put it in modern terms, it would be like a saltwater crocodile attacking a French bulldog. Yeah, not exactly fun, at least not for the bulldog. But scientists have also offered a more optimistic explanation. Perhaps ancient hominins knew the horror lurking beneath the water. With their smaller size and natural wariness, they may have learned to avoid the most dangerous spots, steering clear of the deep lakes where the monsters hid. Even so, researchers believe that, at least a few times, some were not so lucky. In any era, wherever there is water, there is always the chance of that fatal encounter. And so, even though Crocodylus thorbjarnarsoni may lack direct fossil evidence of human attacks, the title of largest man-eating predator still belongs to the Crocodylus genus. And the crazy part? We don't even have to switch time periods to find a new champion. Around 1.8 million years ago, another giant crocodile appeared, Crocodylus anthropophagus, its name literally meaning the man-eater. No imagination needed to see why. This species lived alongside C. thorbjarnarsoni in East Africa, and numerous fossils confirm that it truly hunted early humans. Though described as slightly smaller, C. anthropophagus was still enormous. About 7.5 meters, 25 feet long, and over 2 tons in weight. Another swimming tank. What makes it especially remarkable is the direct evidence. Numerous hominin fossils, particularly those of Homo habilis, bear bite marks that match this crocodile's teeth with near-perfect precision. The marks are mostly found on the lower limbs, suggesting an ambush strategy, striking as the victim bent down to drink. One particularly grim case borders on absurd. A Homo habilis individual had his leg torn off by C. anthropophagus, only to be attacked again later by a large cat. Apparently, Mother Nature really hated that guy. This left paleontologists puzzled. Why do we find so many bite-mark fossils from Anthropophagus, but none from thorbjarnarsoni? Both were nearly the same size, lived in the same time and region. The chilling answer might be this. All the fossils showing bite marks come from medium-sized crocodiles, not the truly enormous ones. Once they reached full size, they left no trace behind at all. Hypothesis: the giant crocodiles may have simply swallowed their prey whole. No broken bones, no leftover bite marks. They ate clean, to the point that fossilization became a matter of pure luck. It's almost like a software update. The bigger they got, the better they were at clearing their browser history. And if that idea doesn't haunt you enough, take a close look at the heads of these two species. They had horns. In C. thorbjarnarsoni, the horns rose from the frontal bones, 2 ridges just above the eyes like raised eyebrows. A few modern Nile crocodiles show similar bumps today, but only occasionally. In thorbjarnarsoni, this feature was permanent. C. anthropophagus, on the other hand, took it even further. Its horns projected from the rear of the skull, just above the ears, and were much more pronounced. Males had the largest horns, likely used to intimidate rivals or attract mates, much like antlers in deer. But if you're wondering, did it make them look any friendlier? Absolutely not. These horned crocodiles didn't just hunt humans or primates. They were opportunistic predators, meaning anything that moved was fair game. Zebras, water buffalo, even young rhinos, hippos, or small elephants could all become victims. The only fortunate thing is that their known range wasn't very large. Fossils of C. thorbjarnarsoni are mostly confined to Kenya's Turkana Basin, while C. anthropophagus remains are concentrated around Tanzania's Olduvai Gorge. Of course, that might just be because we haven't found enough fossils yet. Their true range could have been much wider. But if it really was limited, the reason may lie in their sheer size. Gigantism isn't always an advantage. A body nearly 8 meters long overheats easily, forcing these reptiles to stay in deep, cool water year-round. Smaller crocodiles could bask on land or migrate between lakes, but these aquatic dinosaurs were prisoners of their own mass. And while crocodiles have slow metabolisms, requiring less energy than mammals, at that scale, even less wasn't enough during periods of violent climate instability. Around 1.8 million years ago, the Pleistocene climate turned erratic. The East African lake system shrank, and water levels fluctuated dramatically. The giants began to vanish. Food scarcity, shrinking. Habitats and bodies too massive to adapt spelled their doom. Some researchers suggest that smaller crocodile species outcompeted them, especially Crocodylus niloticus, the modern Nile crocodile now numbering over 12,000 individuals around Lake Turkana, and Euthecodon, another giant genus, sometimes rivaling thorbjarnarsoni in size. Both Euthecodon and thorbjarnarsoni could exceed 7 meters, leading scientists to debate which was the true king. But the result was the same. Neither survived the climatic chaos. In hindsight, it's the classic tragedy of evolution. The mightier they are, the more fragile they become. A crocodile powerful enough to swallow a human whole couldn't survive a few degrees change in temperature. Nature's ultimate weapon isn't fangs, it's time. Today, the Crocodylus lineage still survives, but the man-eating monsters of the past are gone, leaving only smaller, yet equally dangerous descendants. And every time we stand by a quiet lakeshore, it's hard not to imagine. What if something 8 meters long was watching us from below? That's the difference between living with nature and surviving by staying away from it. Yet perhaps it was those terrifying encounters with C. thorbjarnarsoni and C. anthropophagus alike that taught our ancestors the most crucial lesson of all: to recognize fear in order to survive. The estimated length of Euthecodon ranges from about 7.2 meters, 28 feet. No, not 22, but still colossal. And before you pity our ancestors again, here's some good news for them. Unlike its two monstrous relatives, thorbjarnarsoni and anthropophagus, this one's size estimates might actually be overstated. While skull measurements of thorbjarnarsoni tend to underestimate true size, those of Euthecodon often exaggerate it. In other words, this giant might not have been as gigantic as once thought. Moreover, its skull morphology suggests it wasn't built to kill massive terrestrial prey. Its jaws were long, slender, and narrow, strikingly similar to the gharials of modern India. Its teeth were thin, uniform, and needle-sharp, perfect for gripping slippery fish rather than crushing mammalian bone. Those traits tell us one thing. Despite its size, Euthecodon was a giant fish hunter, not a human killer. It likely preyed on large freshwater fish in ancient African rivers, occasionally snatching small animals near the water's edge. But man-eater was probably not on the menu. Of course, saying that is easy. I certainly wouldn't step into the lake to test that hypothesis. The creature you're hearing about now is indeed Euthecodon, a colossal crocodilian genus unique to Africa's Pliocene era. Some fossils measure up to 7.5 meters long, though most were between 5 and 6 meters. Its elongated snout made up more than half the skull's length, increasing cutting efficiency in water, but reducing impact resistance, explaining why it rarely hunted large land animals. Fascinatingly, Euthecodon coexisted with both thorbjarnarsoni and anthropophagus in the same ancient Turkana lake system, turning the region into a true crocodile arena. 3 giant genera sharing one domain. However, by the end of the early Pleistocene, Euthecodon too disappeared without a trace, nearly at the same time as its siblings. According to a 2023 University of Nairobi study, its extinction may have been triggered by the severe contraction of the East African lake system during intense climate oscillations. As water levels dropped and fish populations dwindled, a fish specialist like Euthecodon simply lost its food source. Ironically, the very bulk that once made it ruler of the rivers also made it too slow to adapt when the waters receded. Though giant lineages like Euthecodon, thorbjarnarsoni, and anthropophagus are gone, their relatives endure. The Nile, saltwater, and Cuban crocodiles still dominate as apex predators across Africa, Asia, and the Americas. They're smaller, but smarter, more agile, and still dangerous enough to keep humans wary. Today, crocodiles remain the deadliest animals that actively hunt humans, far surpassing lions or tigers. According to the IUCN, over 1,000 natural crocodile attacks occur each year, most in Africa and Southeast Asia. So if anyone claims that we've evolved beyond nature, remind them, one wrong step at a riverbank in Africa, and history might just replay itself. Ultimately, Euthecodon reminds us of a cold truth. Strength does not equal survival. When the climate changes, the giants fall. Only the adaptable and patient continue. Today's crocodiles are living proof. No longer 8 meters long, but still the king of the swamp. Silent, waiting, and striking precisely when necessary. There is a thin line between humans and them, respect and coexistence, contempt and punishment. Every placid surface of the water is the line between curiosity and survival. The moral they leave us isn't fear, but discipline for survival. To read nature, understand its rhythms, and know when to step back. Evolution doesn't reward the strongest. It rewards the most adaptable. And when you stand beside any lake, today or tomorrow, ask yourself, are we imposing ourselves on nature or learning to walk lightly through the world of those who once swallowed history whole? If you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next episode in our Prehistoric Evolution Paleogeography series.